So we are going to talk about problem number 4 from section 4.3. We are going to start by finding the basic property of my function and then trying to fill in the blanks, trying to figure out what exactly is my a, b, c, and d here. You do realize there are two possibilities here. It could be potentially a sine and a cosine function. Whichever one makes it simpler, we will go with that. But essentially, you want to find what is a, what is b, what is c, what is d. In order to find those values, you are going to go backwards because we know earlier how to go from a, b, c, d to period, range, amplitude, and phase. So we're going to read the graph, find the period, range, amplitude, and phase, and find the a, b, c, d. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, period. How often does this function repeat itself? As you can see, it goes from this point and reach back to this point, and it goes down and up and down and up to here. It's begin to repeat itself. So whatever you have here essentially is 1.5 of the period, right? 1.5 of the period. So this is a whole period. So horizontally, if you were to read it, reaching the same height, right? Repeating itself. So this is going from -2 stripe through +2. So your period is the distance between -2 and +2. So the period is technically 4 here. The next thing we want to discuss is the range, which basically is the height you manage to swipe through from the highest to the lowest point, which is -6 up to 4. -6 up to 4. So basically it's this. Let's mark it down. The next question is what exactly is your amplitude? Your amplitude is halfway of your range. So exactly it's the highest point to the middle point or the middle point to the lowest point. Because your range has a size of 4 through -6, which is size of 10. So half of it is going to be having an amplitude of 5. The last question is the most tricky one. What exactly is your function horizontal shifting? So I need to decide whether I want to focus this discussion as a sine or a cosine function. So just to help us to recall the idea a little bit better, sine function goes up and down and up, starts from exactly the middle point, versus the cosine function goes from the highest point, go down and go up. This is 2 pi, this is 2 pi, this is my cosine function. So if you were to look at this graph, you probably realize, okay, this is my middle point, right? Halfway through, middle line between, halfway through between the highest and lowest point. So you can see your function start from what? From exactly the middle point of your whole thing. So it is pretty intuitive that you probably want to compare it with a sine function who start exactly at halfway through the largest and lowest function possible value. So my discussion would be the simplest if I were to choose it as a sine function. So I have my goal set. I want to set it as a sine bx plus c plus d. And because it starts from exactly the middle point, so horizontally I didn't have to shift. So my horizontal shift was there. Okay, let's go ahead and do our calculation. In this particular case, it goes up, it goes up. So clearly there's no reflection. So my a must be positive. My a being positive, then it's the same as its magnitude. Sorry, it's the same as its own value. And also I realize my amplitude is 5, right? That's what I found earlier. So this is what I identified first. The second thing is my shift. My horizontal shift was supposed to be c over b, right? And then I realized because this is supposed to be 0, so my c is technically 0. So I found a, I find c. I need to know my d and my b. So how do I find my d? Well, we do remember that the range is negative absolute value of a plus d and positive absolute value of a plus d, where I know a is 5. So my range is supposed to be this. The actual value of it is -6 up to 4. So probably you've already realized in order for those to be matching with each other, the d must be -1. So I find my d as well. Last but not least, what exactly is my value for the b? B tells me what? B tells me the period, if you recall what we had earlier. The period is 2 pi over absolute value of b. right? And in this particular case, we can always assume b to be positive. If it were not positive, we have a way to rephrase it with the help of sine and cosine function being even or odd, and then we can always get the b being positive. So in this particular case, my period is 4, so I end up with 4. So my b is 2 pi over 4, hence pi over 2. So I find my b as well. So to put everything together, my final answer is 5 times sine times pi over 2x plus 0. And then my d is -1. So this is my final answer. And you may say, I'm not sure. I will be choosing the sine function. What exactly is going to happen if I were to choose the cosine function? Well, the exact same thing is going to happen for the same value of a, same value of d, same value of b. The only thing that's going to happen, that's going to be changed, is your function is going to be shifted in a slightly different way, because if you look at it, a cosine function starts with the highest point, versus this function starts not at the highest point. So if you want to look at your highest point, this graph coming from that is you shift your general cosine function by a size of what? Where exactly is this? So this is 0, this is 2, so this must be 1. So what you did is you do the shifting of your function and then make sure it starts at 1. So your horizontal shifting, if you were to discuss it as a cosine function, is you are going to shift towards the right by 1. And what exactly is shift towards the right by 1? It means value, it's -1. So c over b is supposed to be -1 if you were to use a cosine function. You did find your b to be pi over 4, so your c is -1 times pi over 2, so it's -pi over 2. So if you want to do the whole thing as a cosine function, it's the same a, it's the same b, it's the same c, same b, it's a slightly different b, and then it's a slightly different c, and it's the same d. So you can see it's actually not too bad, right? So this is how we are going to cover the whole discussion of this problem. So you should be able to read the graph and find the period, the range, the amplitude, and the phase relatively easily. The phase is the most tricky one because before you find the phase, you need to decide whether you have your sine or your cosine function. And the rest part is just a matter of doing some simple backward calculation, which only takes about 10 seconds. Okay.